This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers, right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning broadcast team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, and Mark Magnuson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Mark Magnuson.
Hello and welcome into Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Mark Magnuson. Today is Tuesday, March 5th, 2024. We're so glad you can join us for today's show. In today's episode, I will bring you the latest Iowa Ag News headlines. I will also be joined by Iowa Corn Growers Association President Jolene Riessen as she details the National Corn Growers Association Corn Congress meeting that took place at Commodity Classic over the weekend. It is time now for our closing market summary.
It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at agmarket.net.
At the end of another trading day, joined now by Ross Baldwin of agmarket.net for our closing market discussion. Ross, unfortunately, kind of a turnaround Tuesday today, but a turnaround to the negative side, it looks like.
It was, Mark. We saw the gains that we had yesterday across corn and beans and wheat essentially erased. And the weather in South America, for the most part, is favorable. The 2-week forecast has got plenty of moisture across Brazil and Argentina. And corn and soybeans bounced up near their 20-day moving average, which is an area that's been resistance for the last couple of months, and just reversed course here today.
Ross, something we've talked about here a little bit recently after we got very close to that $4 number, did dip down below $4 in corn in some of those contracts, but just that psychological aspect of when that corn does reach a barrier like that, it can have an impact. It does seem like we have seen that play out in the marketplace in that timeline since.
Yeah, like you said, we got March corn dipped below $4, I believe, $3.98.5, and we had a nice rally off of the lows. I mean, it's not a rally that farmers were hoping for. I should say it was shallower than what we've all kind of been hoping for rally, but we did have a decent bounce off of, trading below $4 and just kind of running out of steam at the 20-day moving average. And what's interesting is May corn stopped at the 20-day yesterday. May soybeans didn't quite get up exactly to the 20-day yesterday before they had pulled back, but both December 24 new crop corn and November beans, new crop soybeans, both stopped right at the 20-day. So I do think moving forward, that's just going to continue to be major resistance to the upside for corn and soybeans.
And Ross, not only does it seem like the marketplace right now looking for some positive news to trade off of or something to happen to trigger maybe some movement in the marketplace, but then on top of it, you have some situations like Ukraine, for example, moving corn to China. It just seems so hard to believe that they're able to do that during the course of a war, but they are. So China able to go and get a deal at a place like that, it just makes it difficult right now.
Correct. When you look at U.S. corn versus South American corn, we're more competitive than they are right now on corn, and looks to stay like that for a few weeks, if not a little bit longer than that. But as you mentioned, China's been buying corn out of Ukraine, and there was some reports of China buying more corn here today out of Ukraine. And we're not that cheap. It's kind of the same thing you're seeing over in the wheat market with Russia wheat. I mean, Russia's been flooding the global market with cheap wheat. So it's tough to compete right now for the U.S.
Let's flip over to the other side of the ag marketplace in the livestock complex. What are we seeing with the protein sector today?
We did have a turnaround Tuesday, and fat cattle and feeder cattle. Hogs were a little bit weaker today, but cattle, they had that surge higher last Friday, fats and feeders did. And we ran into some selling pressure yesterday, which is not uncommon for cattle. After they have a big up day or a big down day, is seldom times do you find a whole lot of follow through. And we had that little bit of a correction, but live cattle and feeders, I mean, they continue to hold their support. I mean, we have a nice uptrend support line for both fats and feeders. They continue to respect that uptrending line. And for the most part, we're back above the 9-day and the 20-day moving average, which we're finding as support. So the opposite of what corn and beans are doing, where they're finding resistance at the 20-day, you can say that cattle continue to respect this technical picture of staying above the 20-day and the 9-day. And hogs are essentially the same thing. hogs, they've had a heck of a rally here. April hogs, they've found some major resistance at this 88 area, but as a whole, April hogs are stuck between their 9-day and 20-day. But you look at some of those deferred months, especially July hogs trading above 103 here. They're keeping their uptrend intact, also supporting them moving averages as support.
Ross, I know you're really dialed into the cattle market, not only just in the state of Iowa, but all over. And in Texas right now, dealing with a really unfortunate situation with wildfires in the Panhandle. Has there been enough damage done there, enough animals lost to make an impact in the cattle marketplace, or are we going to see an impact from those wildfires?
Yeah, very unfortunate situation down there, and our prayers are with everyone that's dealing with that. Some of these reports you're seeing now, I mean, it's totaling, the fires have totaled over 1 million acres, and it's never good to hear of any loss of livestock, and if they're dealing with it, I mean, it's gut wrenching. But as a huge total number, for the most part, it isn't, anything. When you think of how large Texas is in livestock, it's not a huge number. I've heard some rumors of up to 20,000 head so far, primarily being cows on the ranches that they couldn't get moved in time. But that's kind of the rumors that I've heard so far, or reports out of Texas on what's livestock that's been lost to those wildfires.
And that is certainly a situation we will keep tabs on and see if it does end up affecting the marketplace in any more of a fashion as we move forward. Ross, thanks so much for taking the time to join us here on the show today. As always, we appreciate it. What is the best way for our viewers to get in touch with agmarket.net?
You can reach me at our office here in Anthon. Our number is 712-373-3276, or you can find any of the ag market brokers at our website, agmarket.net.
Ross Baldwin of agmarket.net, our guest here today. Thank you, Ross, for the time, and have a great rest of your week.
Thanks for having me, Mark. You too.
Thank you once again to Ross Baldwin of agmarket.net for our market summary here today. Let's turn now to the closing numbers, which can be found under the Markets tab on our website at iowaagnet.com.
May corn is down 3 3/4 at $4.26 1/4. May soybeans down 6 even at $11.49 even. May soybean meal down $3.60 at $3.29.90. May soybean oil down 13 cents at $45.04. Chicago wheat down 13 even at $5.51 even. Kansas City hard red wheat down 11 even at $5.69 1/4. Minneapolis wheat down 4 even at $6.55 1/2. And May oats down 6 1/2 at $3.62 even. On the Merc, April live cattle up $1.32 at $1.88 even. March feeder cattle up 75 cents at $2.52.30. April lean hogs down $1.10 at $85.17. April pork cutout down 87 cents at $92.50, and Class 3 milk down 17 cents at $16.53.
That's our market coverage for today. It is time now to hear from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association, and the Soybean Checkoff. And up next, it is the latest Iowa Ag News headlines.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
It is time now for the latest Iowa Ag News. Today, we had the chance to catch up with Jolene Riessen, the president of the Iowa Corn Growers Association. After the ICGA and other state corn grower groups came together for the National Corn Growers Association Corn Congress on Saturday, that was at Commodity Classic in Houston, Texas.
The meeting itself is a meeting of 27 states worth of delegates. So there's, I believe, 223 delegates were there this year from all across the corn growing states of the United States, there to talk about policy and especially corn policy that is affecting corn growers out there. So it is a big room. We have selected delegates.
Riessen says that the Corn Congress was a chance to advocate in support of policies and actions for the NCGA to implement and establish at the federal level to benefit Iowa's farmers as well as corn farmers across the country.
There was 33 resolutions. Pretty much all those got adopted, and it was anywhere from basically some wordsmithing, so some clarity in our policy book as to what the intent of the resolution was to. So one of the big discussions was a base acre reset to which that the majority rules, we necessarily in the state of Iowa didn't really want to support that very well, because it will financially be a big hit in our state for our farmers, because we have a lot of corn-based acres. So anyway, but you know what, they're doing the right thing. So it also, on those base acres, takes into account acres that have base on them that may not be in production. People are still getting paid on that. So that, I guess, was probably the bigger sticking point, was just to make sure that those acres that are getting paid are actually being farmed. So that was probably will be the biggest fix as far as for that resolution. We also talked about sustainable aviation fuel and our support of that. Or SAE, that's going to be huge coming down the road. And with that resolution, it was more how are we going to handle the GREET model, because that is still being studied by the EPA, and they are talking that they might be doing some tweaks to it. And so we were just concerned that to make sure that those tweaks are not detrimental to what we do for farming out here, and that it is going to be something good for sustainable aviation fuel moving forward.
Jolene Riessen says that the Iowa resolutions passed by the NCGA delegate body include a resolution to not support e-RINs to be associated with the RFS RINs or renewable identification numbers.
We brought that resolution forward that I'm sorry, the state of Iowa, we just supporting electric vehicles is just not a good thing for the state of Iowa, especially when you're the #1 ethanol producing and the #1 corn producing state in the United States. So, and also I think a lot of people saw this winter when we had that bitter cold snap. I think the people that bought Teslas were definitely not farmers, because farmers know when it gets super cold what it does to our batteries. Did the same thing to the electric vehicles, and it was not a good outcome for them. So I say the EVs have a fit someplace, just not feeling it here in the Midwest.
Electric vehicles also discussed within the framework of policy.
So e-RINs was going to allow electric vehicles to get the same type of buy-in that the RINs are. So it would help to basically saying that they're as sustainable, if not maybe more sustainable than what our ethanol is, to which is not the case.
And the Farm Bill, of course, a major focus of discussion at Corn Congress, says Riessen.
Well, I think, there too, unfortunately, that's something kind of out of our control. That's all on the legislative body there in DC. So, but just know that all commodity groups in all states are pushing, the legislative, system there in DC to come with something. We desperately need that farm bill, and unfortunately, it still kind of sounds like they might be kicking the can down the road. And means they basically extended the 2018 farm bill. It kind of sounds like maybe at this point that's what they're going to run with, especially since it's an election year. After a certain point in time, the legislators don't want to mess with anything except the election. So that's kind of what we're running up against. And to be honest with you, meeting a lot of headwinds, but just know that all the corn groups, National Corn, we are pushing hard to get that commitment, and know too that all the legislators, and I've been to the Hill several times this year, are very supportive, especially of crop insurance. So, and our thought there is to please do no harm. Lead that program alone. It works. It's successful. Farmers know it and they trust it to help them on in tough situations.
Another Iowa resolution which passed states that producer data protection legislation should be included in the Farm Bill, requiring that data can only be released as aggregate data.
So at this point in time, what we move forward is any information that is gathered from farmers is aggregated. And so basically that is saying that you can't, whittle that down to one farmer or basically one area. So it's just kind of like a massive data load, so that, the industry is getting the information that they need, but yet they can't, spiral it down to just one area or just one farmer. So I liken it to taking a bunch of papers, with information on it and throwing it up in the air. And then when it all comes down, it's just one piece of information.
Riessen says that while Corn Congress was very productive, there's still a lot of work to be done for corn growers across the state, including policy related to fertilizer.
I guess one thing was the fertilizer portion of it, continuing to try and push forward to get price discovery, to get transparency in that industry. Farmers don't need surprises. Farmers need consistency. And going forward, our margins are tight. And so to level that playing field out there, I think it's going to be real important. So, but with that, it was very successful. A lot of resolutions brought forward and taken care of. And just know we're going to continue to push for corn, push for our farmers, and trying to make life just a little bit better out there for all of us.
Thank you to Jolene Riessen, President of the Iowa Corn Growers Association. The National Cattlemen's Beef Association on Monday called on lawmakers to pass the minibus appropriations package, which was announced over the weekend by congressional leadership. The bill prevents a government shutdown and it supports several key cattle industry priorities. NCBA President Mark Isley says, quote, "While this legislation is not perfect, it advances a number of priorities important to cattle producers, including critical investments in electronic animal ID tags for producers and strengthening oversight of lab-grown protein." End quote. The Department of Agriculture crafting a rule requiring electronic ID tags instead of existing metal tags on certain classes of cattle moving interstate. This change is designed to facilitate faster traceability in case of a foreign animal disease outbreak in the United States. If this rule is finalized, NCBA will support USDA in covering the entire cost of electronic ID tags for impacted producers. Additionally, NCBA supports greater oversight of emerging lab-grown technology. That wraps up today's news headlines and brings us to the end of today's show. You can find all of our content on our website at iowaagnet.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and LinkedIn. And you can find our video content and previous episodes of AM/PM on our YouTube channel. Don't forget as well our free twice-daily market podcast, which are found on Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and Podbean. From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, I'm Mark Magnuson. On behalf of Riley Smith and Dustin Huffman, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.